Om Stavakaya cha dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Stavakaya cha dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna te namaha Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityor ma mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate who came to establish religion in the world. We shall pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic I have chosen, exemplary devotion. Sri Ramakrishna himself stands a glorious example how his devotion was exemplary. How did he start the spiritual life? How could he communicate directly with the Divine Supreme? And how he maintained the spiritual bliss throughout his life? And how cheerfully he gave practical spiritual instructions to the people seeking spiritual life. So what is very important, as Sri Ramakrishna himself has pointed out, that we should certainly be aware of the goal in life. The goal is to realize the truth. That's the most important step. And equally important is to apply oneself in spiritual practice. Without spiritual effort, you won't get anything in spiritual life. So, with all earnestness, we should certainly, vigorously, inspiringly, zealously, devoted way, do spiritual practices. That is, we must cultivate discipline, and we must have proper control over the function of our senses, more so about our mind. It is the mind that makes havoc. It is the mind that drags you towards hell or towards heaven. So, one must become fully aware of the most important mind, and how often we neglect to culture the mind, and we reap the very bad experience out of that. No use of complaining and pointing finger to God. Oh, why God is unkind. God is not unkind. It is your own mind that is responsible for all the suffering. God is ever gracious, and He is more gracious to people who make mistakes. That's why it is said, God is the personification of forgiveness. The most important spiritual quality in a saint is forgiveness. We do very dirty mistakes, but still God is kind. God shows His grace only on one condition, and that is one should practice. Without one engaging himself in spiritual practice, one will not be able to recognize the grace of God. It is human nature to relegate the pursuit of the spiritual goal for attaining liberation from rebirths to old age. As there is a general belief that one will be able to devote time for this only after fulfilling all worldly responsibilities. But is it ever possible? But this is far from the reality on the ground. First, there is no guarantee that one's life will follow a structured course wherein one will find the time and energy to execute the goals one has set for oneself or about one's lifespan. Besides, a lay person cannot decide what the right age for this is. The child devotee Prahlad, while teaching his friends, had reasoned out that one should develop devotion to God from young age. He pointed out that even if one were to live 100 years, half of it would be wasted in sleep. Out of the remaining 50 years, 20 years are spent in childhood and youth, given to ignorance and play, and another 20 years pass in helplessness in old age, when the body is in the grip of senility and failing health. The rest of his life man remains attached to his family and worldly preoccupations, that he does not even realize that his life is ebbing away. It is apparent then that an individual who is serious must earnestly start the spiritual quest from young age, when he does not have worries and responsibilities, and the mind is also untouched by glamorous attractions, which are counterproductive to spiritual progress. Prahlad, a very great devotee indeed, he then advised the boys to practice devotion, which can be accomplished by serving one's preceptor and by offering to him with devotion all that is got by one through the fellowship of pious devotees and worship of God, through reverence of stories of the Lord, by celebrating His virtues and exploits, through contemplation on His lotus feet, and through the sight and worship of His images. When the children started chanting Narayan, the Divine Lord of the universe, their teacher was terrified that Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad, his anger would be upon him and reported the matter to him immediately. It was in order to substantiate the utterance of a sterling devotee like Prahlad that the Lord then manifested as Narsimha. Prahlad was put into so many difficulties by his atheist father, Hiranyakashipu, but Prahlad was simply remembering Narayan, Krishna. Because he was a child, 5 years old, how can he fight with his father? His father was the greatest demon, powerful, and he was against the child. But Prahlad used to simply think of Krishna Smaranam. As Lord Krishna says in the Gita, Sarveshu Kaleshu Ma Manusmara. Remember me all the time. Prahlad did that. He said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming His servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto Him. In other words, serving Lord with the body, mind and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of the Lord through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for his acquired complete knowledge. When Prahlad was asked by his father to say something from whatever he had learned, he considered that what he had learned from his spiritual master was the best of all teachings, whereas what he had learned about diplomacy from his material teachers, Chanda and Amarka, was useless. A pure devotee is interested only in devotional service, not in material affairs. To execute devotional service, one should always engage in hearing and chanting about the Lord. There's another great story in Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of King Parikshit. King Parikshit and sage Shuka, they are well known for their exemplary devotion to the divine, as evident from the Bhagavat. How did the king listen to this exposition of the glory of the Lord? He was totally engrossed in it, oblivious to hunger and sleep during the 7 days in which the sage recounted the divine deeds of the Supreme Being in his various manifestations. And the sage from whom he had the good fortune to listen was a self-realized one, even at birth. Shukadev was in such an exalted state of union that even the trees identified with him. He had no attachment at all and wandered away from home, and his father Vyasa had to run behind him, asking him to return. While Vyasa, referred to as a sage, his son was hailed as Shuka Brahma, a self-realized person. There's another great devotee who is also noted for his exemplary devotion. That is Sudama. his devotion to Lord Krishna was very inspiring. Even though Sudham and Krishna were childhood friends, having studied together under sage Sandipini, it did not occur to Sudham, even when living in abject penury, to seek anything from him. Sudham's wife was also equally devoted, and when she beseeched him to visit Krishna, she did not send him with the intention of seeking anything from him, but knew that the Lord would bless them. When Sudham visited Krishna, he was only concerned. When Sudama visited Krishna, he was only concerned whether the Lord would recognize him after all these years. But the reception he was given and the manner Krishna, with great friendship, demanded what he had brought for him, and yet the parched rice that Sudama's wife had managed to send with relish overwhelmed Krishna. It's a pointer that only devotion matters to God. It may be parched rice brought from Sudama, a very poor person indeed, but Lord Krishna, Lord of the universe, relished this food because it was brought with great love and devotion. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, God has put you in the world. What can you do about it? Resign everything to Him. Surrender yourself at His feet. Then there will be no more confusion. Then you will realize that it is God who does everything. All depends on the will of Rama. And this story was told by Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel. How a devotee totally believed that everything is being done by the will of God. In a certain village, there lived a weaver. He was very pious. Everyone trusted him with great respect and they loved him. He used to sell his goods in the marketplace. When a customer asked him the price of a piece of cloth, the weaver would say, by the will of Rama, the price of the yarn is 1 rupee and the labor 4 annas. By the will of Ram, the profit is 2 annas. The price of the cloth, by the will of Rama, is 1 rupee and 6 annas. Such was the people's faith in the weaver that the customer would at once pay the price and take the cloth. The weaver was not an ordinary person, he was a real devotee of God. After finishing his supper in the evening, he would spend long hours in the worship hall meditating on God and chanting His name and glories. Now, late one night, the weaver couldn't get to sleep. He was sitting in the worship hall, smoking now and then, when suddenly a band of robbers happened to pass that way. They wanted a man to carry their goods, the stolen goods. And they saw this weaver there. So they said to him, come with us. So saying, they led him off by the hand. After committing a robbery in a house, they put a load of things on the weaver's head, commanding him to carry them. Suddenly the police arrived and the robbers ran away. But the weaver with his load was arrested. He was kept in the lockup for the night. Next day he was brought before the magistrate for trial. The villagers learnt what had happened and they all came to the court. They said to the magistrate, "Your Honor, this man could never commit a robbery." Thereupon the magistrate asked the weaver to make his statement. The weaver said, "Your Honor, by the will of Ram I finished my meal at night. Then by the will of Ram I was sitting in the worship hall. It was quite late at night by the will of Ram. By the will of Ram I had been thinking of God and chanting His name and glories. When by the will of Ram a band of robbers passed that way, by the will of Rama they dragged me with them. By the will of Ram they committed a robbery in a house. And by the will of Ram they put a load on my head. Just then by the will of Ram the police arrived. And by the will of Ram I was arrested. Then by the will of Ram the police kept me in the lockup for the night. And this morning by the will of Ram I have been brought before your honor." Having heard this statement, the magistrate realized that the weaver was extremely simple and pious man and ordered his immediate release. On his way home, the weaver said to his friends, "By the will of Rama I have been released." This is a story given by Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel. Whether a man should be a householder or a monk depends on the will of Ram. Surrender everything to God and do your duties in the world. What else can you do? Again Sri Ramakrishna said to the Katak, "The gopis had ecstatic love, unswerving and single-minded devotion to one ideal." Do you know the meaning of devotion that is not loyal to one ideal? It is devotion tinged with intellectual knowledge. It makes one feel Krishna has become all these. He alone is the Supreme Brahman. He is Rama, Shiva and Shakti. But this element of knowledge is not present in ecstatic love of God. Another great devotee, Hanuman. Once he came to Dwarak and wanted to see Sita and Rama. Krishna said to Rukmini, his queen, "Well, you had better assume the form of Sita, otherwise there will be no escape from the hands of Hanuman." Once the Pandava brothers performed the Rajasuya sacrifice, all the kings placed Yudhishthira on the royal throne and bowed low before him in homage. But Vibhishan, the king of Ceylon, said, "I bow down to Narayan and to none else." At these words the Lord Krishna bowed down to Yudhishthira. Only then did Vibhishan prostrate himself, crown and all, before him. Then Sri Ramakrishna continued, "Do you know what devotion to one ideal is like? It is like the attitude of a daughter-in-law in the family. She serves all the members of the family, her brothers-in-law, father-in-law, husband and so forth, bringing them water to wash their feet, fetching their towels, arranging their seats and the like. But with her husband she has a special relationship." The characteristics of divine love are very important for us to know. There are two elements in this ecstatic love, I-ness and my-ness. I capital I, minus M-Y, minus. Yashoda used to think, who would look after Gopal if I did not? he will fall ill if I do not serve him. She did not look on Krishna as God. The other element is myness. It means to look on God as one's own, my Gopal. Uddhava said to Yashoda, Mother, your Krishna is God himself. He is the Lord of the universe and not a common human being. Oh, exclaimed Yashoda, I am not asking you about your Lord of the universe. I want to know how my Gopal fares. Not the Lord of the universe, but my Gopal. How faithful to Krishna the gopis were. After many entreaties to the doorkeeper, the gopis entered the royal court in Mathura, where Krishna was seated as king. The doorkeeper took them to him. But at the sight of King Krishna wearing a royal turban, the gopis bent down their heads and said among themselves, Who is this man with a turban on his head? Should we violate our chaste love for Krishna by talking to him? Where is our beloved Krishna with the yellow robe and the bewitching crest with the peacock feather? Did you observe the single-minded love of the gopis for Krishna? The ideal of Vrindavan is unique. A devotee asked, which is the better, ecstatic love or love mixed with knowledge? Again Sri Ramakrishna said a parable of the three friends. It is not possible to develop ecstatic love of God unless you love Him very deeply and regarding Him as your very own. Then Sri Ramakrishna tells a story. Once three friends were going through a forest when a tiger suddenly appeared before them. Brothers, one of them exclaimed, we are lost. Why should you say that? Said the second friend. Why should we be lost? Come, let us pray to God. The third friend said, no, why should we trouble God about it? Come, let us climb this tree. The friend who said we are lost did not know that there is a God who is our protector. The friend who asked the others to pray to God was a jnani. He was aware that God is the creator, preserver and destroyer of the world. The third friend who didn't want to trouble God with prayers and suggested climbing the tree had ecstatic love of God. It is the very nature of such love that it makes a man think himself stronger than his beloved. He is always alert, lest his beloved should suffer. The one desire of his life is to keep his beloved from even being pricked in the foot by a thorn. The one desire of his life is to keep his beloved from even being pricked in the foot by a thorn. During the Lord's incarnation as Lord Rama, His infinite compassion and inherent accessibility became manifest during the many instances when He met His devotees face to face. It was their good fortune to be overwhelmed and blessed in these encounters. It is pointed out that when two such Bhagavatottamas, devotees who excel in their pure and faultless bhakti to the Lord, met on the banks of the Ganga, as happened in the case of the hunter Guha and Bharat. It was an opportunity for discovering each other's sincere devotion to Lord Rama. Guha was blessed to have served Lord Rama during the first lap of his forest life. Touched by Guha's devotion, the Lord accepted him as his own brother and sought his help to cross the river. So Guha developed a possessive love towards Lord Ram that bordered on the overprotective. This made him suspect Bharata's wholesome and untainted love for his brother. That's why he was initially unable to fathom the cause of the huge army of Bharat that was fast approaching his kingdom. He wondered whether it was with an evil intent to harm Lord Ram to ensure the prosperous Ayodhya for himself that Bharat was thus trailing Lord Rama. Though extremely pained at this insinuation, Bharat clarified that his intention was to persuade Lord Ram to return to Ayodhya. Bharat learnt from Guha each and every detail of Lord Rama's brief stay in the place. Guha was witness to the utter transparency of Bharat's nobility and unflinching devotion when he saw Bharat unable to bear the thought of the hardships his brother would experience in the forest. Guha got an opportunity to set right his wrong assessment of Bharat. The two Bhaktas now experienced a close-knit friendship because they acknowledged their similar status and common goal, devotion to Lord Ram. Even as Guha sought Bharata's pardon for his error of misunderstanding, Bharat was overjoyed to see the great devotion of Guha. Guha claimed that Bharat's fame was unequalled since he relinquished a kingdom that had come to him without any effort. Sri Ramakrishna tells in the Gospel, Hanuman said, I don't know the position of the stars or the phase of the moon, I only think of Ram. The chatak bird craves only rainwater. Even when it is dying of thirst, it turns its beak upward and wants only water from the sky. The Ganges, the Jamuna and the 7 oceans are filled to the brim, but still it will not touch the water of the earth. Ram and Lakshman visited Pampa lake. Lakshman saw a crow very eager for water. Again and again it went to the edge of the water, but would not drink. Lakshman asked Rama about it. Rama said, Brother, this crow is a great devotee of God. Day and night it repeats the name of Ram. Its throat is parched with thirst, but still it won't drink for fear of missing a repetition of Ram's name. On a full moon night I said to Haldari, Sri Ramakrishna said, Brother, is it the night of the new moon or love? Smiling, yes, it is true. Once I was told that a characteristic of a man of perfect knowledge is that he cannot distinguish between the full moon and the new moon. But how could one convince Haldari of that? He said, this is certainly the dark Kali Yuga. He cannot distinguish the full moon from the new moon, and people respect him. Mahimacharya entered the room. Master said respectfully, come in, sir. Please take a seat. To Vijay and the other devotees, Sri Ramakrishna said, in the ecstatic state of mind, I cannot remember a date. The other day, there was a religious festival at Benipal's garden. I forgot the date. I can no longer remember the last day of the month when it is very auspicious to repeat the name of God. Sri Ramakrishna remained thoughtful a few minutes. Then he said, but I remember, if a man makes an engagement to visit me, a man attains this state when his mind is 100% absorbed in God. When Hanuman returned from Ceylon, Rama said to him, you have seen Sita, tell me, how did you find her? Hanuman said, O Ram, I saw that only the body of Sita lay there. It held neither her mind nor her soul. She has indeed consecrated her mind and soul to your lotus feet. Therefore I saw only her body in Ceylon. Further, I saw the king of death prowling about. But what could he do? It is only a body. It had neither mind nor soul. If you meditate on an ideal, you will acquire its nature. If you think of God day and night, you will acquire the nature of God. A salt dole went into the ocean to measure its depth. It became one with the ocean. What is the goal of books or scriptures? The attainment of God. A man opened a book belonging to a sadhu. He saw the word Ram written on every page. There is nothing else. If a man loves God, even the slightest thing kindles spiritual feeling in him. Then repeating the name of Ram but once, he gets the fruit of 10 million sandhyas. At the sight of a cloud, the peacock's emotion is awakened. He dances, spreading his tail. Radha had the same experience. Just the sight of a cloud recalled Krishna to her mind. Chaitanya Dev was passing a village. He heard that drums were made from the earth of that place. At once he was overwhelmed with ecstasy because drums are used in kirtan. But who can have this spiritual awakening? Only he who has renounced his attachment to worldly things. If the sap of attachment is totally dried up in a man, the slightest suggestion kindles his spiritual emotion. Though you strike a wet match 1,000 times, it will not produce a spark. But if it is dried, the slightest rubbing will set it aflame. Pain and pleasure are inevitable in the body. He who has realized God dedicates his mind and life, his body and soul to God. When Ram and Lakshman went to take their bath in Pampa lake, they thrust their bows into the ground. Coming out of the water, Lakshman took out his bow and found its tip stained with blood. Ram said to him, "Look, brother, look. Perhaps we have hurt some creature." Lakshman dug in the earth and found a big bullfrog. It was dying. Ram said to the frog in a sorrowful voice, "Why didn't you croak? We should have tried to save you. You croak lustily enough when you are in the jaws of a snake." The frog said, "O Lord, when I am attacked by a snake, I croak, saying, 'O Ram, save me, O Ram, save me.' This time I found that it was Rama who was killing me, so I kept still." Among the foremost devotees of the Lord in his incarnation as Sri Ram, Hanuman has a unique status. He becomes a central figure in the canto named after him, the Sundarkand, as the Lord's envoy to search for the Divine Mother, Sita, in Lanka. His inimitable traits like his physical prowess for undertaking the arduous journey to the enemy's land, and his acumen for executing the task successfully came to the fore when he was unanimously chosen for the mission. It is pointed out that Hanuman's singular qualities of head and heart enabled him to bring about the union of Rama and Sita. This union is termed as marriage of the soul in the spiritual tradition. Sage Vishwamitra, who arrived at Dashrath's court with the pretext of seeking Ram for protecting his sacrifice, actually desired to bring about the marriage of Rama and Sita, which he accomplished. This was a marriage brought about with the intention of upholding dharma in the world, for which the Lord had incarnated with his consort. The separation of Sita from Ram signifies the soul getting entrapped in worldly bondage and ensuing suffering as a result. When Hanuman took leave of Ram, the Lord entrusted him with his signet ring so that the Sita would be convinced that he was his messenger. She acknowledged with tears of joy on seeing it, and in return sent her Chudamani, an ornament worn on the head. This exchange of jewels also has a deeper symbolism, highlighting the dynamics of the doctrines of self-surrender, Sharanagati. The ring being a jewel worn on the hand symbolizes the Lord's promise to offer protection to the soul in distress when it surrenders to Him. The Chudamani signifies supplication at the Lord's feet. When the devotee bows down his head, touches his feet. Thus, two basic conditions for Sharanagati to be effective are highlighted. As for Hanuman, he donned the role of the preceptor who brings about the union of the soul with the Lord. The Ramayana is thus hailed as a scriptural authority for the concept of Sharanagati in Sri Vaishnava theology. Vibhishana's surrender being the paradigmatic instance of Sharanagati. Among the devotees of God who have become renowned for their exemplary devotion and service is Hanuman of Ramayana fame. He was great in every sense of the word. The trusted envoy of his dear Lord, the mission of reuniting Sita with Rama was entrusted to him, and no other incident is necessary to testify his greatness. Known as Anjaneya, since he was born as the spiritual offspring of the goddess Anjana and Vayu, the wind god, when his mother was cursed to be born as a Vanara, he was blessed by his father that he would be the foremost in prowess and intelligence among the Vanaras. A well-known incident is recounted of his childhood. When feeling hungry and imagining the rising sun to be a fruit, he flew towards it in order to pluck and eat it. Indra, fearing the safety of the sun, threw his thunderbolt at him, which injured his cheek, from when he came to be known as Hanuman. To pacify his father, Vayu, who was enraged, Indra and the other gods showered boons on Hanuman, including the one making him immortal. Vali, before dying, tells Rama that even if he should forego Sugriva's help in the mission of finding Sita, he should not think of rejecting Hanuman's help. Perhaps in his dying moments, Vali could foresee the future with clarity and certainty. He must have known Hanuman's competence. True to his prediction, Sugriva, who was asked to start the search for Sita after the rainy season was over and given a respite to enjoy his newfound happiness, forgot all about the job entrusted to him. It is Hanuman who gave sane counsel to Sugriva, pointing out his duty, exhorting him to assemble his Vanara army to fulfill the task entrusted to him. After assigning different tasks to his commanders to search in all directions, Sugriva expressed the confidence he had in Hanuman by telling Ram that he would only succeed in locating Sita. The solemnity and the poignancy of the occasion can be very well imagined when Rama, placing his full trust in the fidelity and ability of Hanuman, entrusted his signet ring to him with the words, "Take this ring, I am full of hope that you will discover Sita. This ring will tell her that you are my messenger. Dear Hanuman, may you bring Sita and me together again." From here starts the Sundarkandam, which recounts the glorious deeds of this royal and ideal servant of God, who in a fitting manner fulfilled the trust reposed in him with unwavering faith. There is another very great devotee. Her name is Sakubai. She is from Maharashtra. The integral unity of feelings in the heart, the words spoken by the mouth, and the actions done by the hands represents the unity of the three active principles in man. Pure feelings are the outcome of pure thoughts. Feelings are related to thoughts. Only when the thoughts are good can the feelings be pure and sacred. Pure results are the outcome of pure thoughts. Once a great devotee, Sakubai, complained to the saint Namadev that somebody was stealing the cow dung cakes she was making every day. Namadev asked Sakubai, "Well, how do you identify the cow dung cakes made by you?" She replied, "I always recite the name of the Lord, whatever action I may be doing. The cow dung cakes I prepare bear the trait of the name I chant." She ran up to her home and brought a cow dung cake made by her. She placed it close to the ear of Namadev. The dung cake was chanting the name of God, Ranga Ranga Panduranga. Namdev heard these words coming out continuously from the cake. He wondered whether this was real. Even the great men of those days could develop doubts of this kind. Sakubai was asked to prepare another dung cake. She brought some dung and made it into a cake while chanting the words Ranga Ranga, Panduranga. Namdev tested that cake by keeping it close to his ear. Once again he heard the words Ranga Ranga, Panduranga coming forth from the dung cake. He realized that the power of the Lord's name was beyond all reckoning. Man's thoughts remained forever, outlasting his human existence. Prior to this episode, Namdev used to be known as Vamadeva. From that day, he started chanting the name of the Lord Nama, the name of the Lord the Supreme. Namdev was ever blissful, chanting the Lord's name. By reciting the Lord's name, any difficult task can be accomplished. One becomes what one thinks. Yad bhavam tad bhavati. Yad bhavam tad bhavati. Hence, people should see that their thoughts are pure and good. Human life is the expression of one's thoughts. When an inquiry is made into what is most important for man, the most important thing for anyone is the name of the Lord. It is God's name that promotes the fame of a person. In this context, the importance of thoughts should be properly understood. Thoughts arising in the mind fill the atmosphere with waves of energy. Like radio waves, they are present everywhere. We are able to listen in America to a broadcast from Delhi. How did the radio waves reach here from Delhi? By entering the ether in space. Likewise, thought waves are equally powerful and sacred. Hence, our thoughts should be sublime and sacred. No evil deeds should affect our thoughts. Evil thoughts inevitably lead to evil actions. When cruel thoughts enter the mind, men behave like cruel animals. When instead there are good and loving thoughts in a man, they divinize the man and make him do good and sacred acts. Hence, every man's heart should be filled with love, compassion and kindness. When bad thoughts fill the mind, even ostensibly good acts result in bad consequences. Hence, the primary requisite is to make one's thoughts good and holy. Unfortunately, today, because of the influence of this Kali age, men's thoughts go astray and men lead bad lives. People should realize that there is no greater blessing than leading a pure life. By chanting the Lord's name, men can cross an ocean of troubles. God's name is the boat for crossing the ocean of mundane existence. In ancient times, people led their lives based on the constant repetition of the Lord's name. The power of the Lord's name could be seen in the fact that even the cow dung cakes made by Sakubai while reciting the Lord's name chanted the name of Ranga. Every person should remember and recite the Lord's name whatever action they may be engaged in. The divine pervades the cosmos. Hence, whatever you may see or say or do, the divine is present in it. But the divine is subtle, not perceivable or graspable. You should not conclude from this that there is no God. Air is not visible or cannot be held, but can its existence be denied? Without air one cannot live for a moment. Air is only one of the 5 elements. All 5 elements are essential for life. They constitute the basic stuff of the universe. Their very existence proclaims the power of the divine. How can the existence of God be denied by anyone? God does not mean any particular form. All forms are His Chidananda forms. He is manifest in man as supreme bliss, the divine. This bliss is present in man as his spiritual essence. Man has no need to go after trivial pleasures when he has this eternal bliss within himself. He will experience this bliss when he gets rid of the attachment to the body born out of delusion and ignorance. Sakubai was one who had realized this truth and was in continuous contemplation of the Lord's name. Recognizing the intensity of her devotion, Lord Krishna assumed her form and she instructed her to go to Pandharpur. You can see the greatness of Bhagavan's love for the devotee. Assuming the devotee's form, Lord Krishna performed all her domestic chores and enabled her to go to Pandharpur. God sees to it that the devotee is not exposed to calumny. He saw to it that no one pointed the finger of criticism at Sakubai for her absence from the house. He himself assumed the form of Sakubai and did all the household work. Sakubai went to Pandharpur. What happened? When she went and saw the Divine Lord there, she merged in the Lord there itself. The power of faith is incalculable. With faith, any difficult task can be carried out. This truth cannot be understood by inwardly affairs. It must be recognized that chanting the name of the Lord is highly sacred and efficacious. It serves to remove the impurities in a person. It promotes good and sacred thoughts. When the heart is filled with truth and love, only positive thoughts will arise. There is no meaning in reciting the name of Rama or Krishna once in a year. How often do you take your meals for the sake of the body? Does not the mind require to be fed equally? Contemplation of God is the food for the mind. To feed the belly and starve the mind is like decorating the chariot but starving the horse. To keep the chariot of the body moving, it is necessary to feed the horse of the mind. The body is taken care of openly in innumerable ways. The mind needs to be fed in private. No one can notice the chanting of the Lord's name. No one can rob one of the benefits it confers. Possessing this invaluable capacity, man should not fail to make full use of it. He strives so much to earn wealth. Do you take the same trouble to experience God? Should you not spare some time for thoughts of God? So, we should focus our attention on our spiritual life. If we don't give attention, if we are not serious about the spiritual life, it is only an unfortunate situation that given a sacred opportunity as human being, we have lost that opportunity if we have not used it for spiritual practices. So let us try to understand the deep significance of the chanting of the divine name and how it is very necessary to control the mind and senses and discipline them, turning them towards God, not running after the glamours of the world, but we should really seek the true gem that is the Divine Supreme. Let us try to practice devotion and realize the truth in this very life. Thank you. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavigam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. May the Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we not be fruitful and enlightened. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.